I stand in the first-class cabin of my private jet, feeling the soft hum of the engines beneath my feet. The blue-gray carpet is plush against my Louboutins, and every surface gleams with understated luxury. This is my plane, every inch of it, from the hand-stitched leather seats to the crystal glasses in the galley. I've been waiting for this moment for 5 years, though it feels like an eternity. Marcus Denning steps through the doorway, his confident stride faltering when he sees me. The spark of recognition in his eyes is unmistakable, followed quickly by confusion. He's taller than I remember, his salt and pepper hair expertly cut, his tailored suit screaming money and influence. But it's his eyes I remember most. Cold, calculating, entitled. "Miss Reeves?" he asks, his voice perfectly controlled despite his obvious surprise. I wasn't expecting the CEO to be on board. "Welcome aboard Ascend Airways, Mr. Denning." I extend my hand, reveling in the firm grip I now possess, so different from the timid handshake I once offered him. "Seat 1A, as you requested. I made sure to reserve it specially for you." His smile is automatic, professional, but I can see the gears turning behind his eyes. He doesn't remember me as I was, the anxious junior analyst he bullied out of her seat 5 years ago. The woman whose life ended because of a chain of events he set in motion. How could he? In this timeline, that woman ceased to exist the moment I was reborn. "This is quite an honor," he says, straightening his Italian silk tie. "I've heard remarkable things about your transformation of this airline." I feel my lips curl into a smile that doesn't reach my eyes. "Oh, the honor is all mine, Mr. Denning. I've been waiting for this flight for a very long time." He settles into his seat, the one I've personally prepared for him, and I notice his slight frown at my phrasing. Good, let him wonder. "The usual champagne before takeoff?" I ask, already knowing his preference from the extensive file my team has compiled on him. "You've done your research," he says, accepting the crystal flute I offer. Impressive attention to detail. "You have no idea," I murmur, glancing out the window at the tarmac below. This time, the flight will end very differently. 5 years ago, or maybe in another lifetime entirely, I was standing in the narrow aisle of Flight 2542 to the Maldives, staring down at a man occupying my window seat. 17F. "Excuse me," I said, clutching my boarding pass like a shield. My voice came out softer than I intended, already apologetic before the confrontation had even begun. "I think you're in my seat." Marcus Denning barely looked up from his laptop. "I prefer the window," he said dismissively. "The attendant said it was fine." I glanced at the flight attendant, a blonde woman with a practiced smile, who gave me an apologetic shrug. "There's an aisle seat in row 34 available, ma'am." "But I specifically booked this seat months ago," I protested, feeling my cheeks burn as other passengers began to grumble behind me. The line was backing up, and I could feel the collective impatience building. This is a 6-hour flight, and I get claustrophobic in middle seats. "Is there a problem?" Marcus finally looked up at me, his gaze so coldly entitled that I felt instantly diminished. He had the look of someone who'd never been told no in his life. "I'm in the middle of important business. Perhaps you could continue this discussion with the flight attendant somewhere else. You're blocking the aisle." I wanted to stand my ground, to insist on my assigned seat, to make him move. But years of conditioning to be accommodating, to not make a scene, paralyzed me. The weight of all those stares, the silent judgment of strangers, it was too much. The flight attendant gently took my elbow and guided me away, her nails digging slightly into my skin. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her eyes darting back to Marcus. "He's a Platinum Elite member, and he specifically asked for a window. Row 34 is right by the bathroom, but it's an aisle seat." I wanted to cry. This vacation was my first in 3 years, carefully saved for and meticulously planned. The window seat was a small luxury I'd looked forward to, a chance to watch the clouds and dream about the week ahead. Row 34 turned out to be the worst seat on the plane, directly adjacent to the bathroom, with a seat that didn't recline due to the bulkhead behind it. For 6 hours, I endured the constant opening and closing of the bathroom door, the smells, the line of people standing over me. A child spilled orange juice on my new linen pants. The flight attendant who'd reseated me avoided eye contact for the entire flight. It was only later, scrolling through my photos from previous trips while waiting for my luggage, that I realized this was the third time Marcus Denning had taken my seat. 3 different flights, same man, same entitled behavior, same flight attendants who wouldn't stand up to him, and what were the odds? The universe seemed to be playing a cruel joke on me, some cosmic game where I was perpetually the loser. I arrived at my dream vacation exhausted, migraine pounding behind my eyes from the stress and poor air circulation at the back of the plane. My checked bag didn't make the connection, leaving me without clothes or toiletries for the first day of my hard-earned vacation. The resort shop was closed for renovation, and the nearest store was an hour away. I spent that first night washing my travel clothes in the bathroom sink and hanging them to dry, fighting tears of frustration as I looked out at the perfect beach view I was too exhausted to enjoy. The next morning, still wearing yesterday's clothes and fighting fatigue, I joined the scuba excursion I'd booked months in advance. The other tourists gave me odd looks, the bedraggled woman in wrinkled clothes among their fresh resort wear. The dive master noted my distraction during the safety briefing, but cleared me anyway. "You'll feel better once you're in the water," he assured me with a wink. 40 feet underwater, surrounded by the colorful fish I'd dreamed of seeing, the panic attack hit without warning. Maybe it was the claustrophobia triggered by the middle seat. Maybe it was the cumulative stress, but suddenly I couldn't breathe. My chest constricted and irrational terror flooded my system. I forgot everything from the safety briefing, every protocol I'd learned in certification. I shot toward the surface, ignoring every safety rule, my mind consumed by the need for air. My last conscious thought before the world went dark was childishly simple. It's not fair. Then nothing. Then everything. I woke up gasping, tangled in my sheets, heart hammering against my ribs. Not the sterile white of a hospital room or the endless void I'd expected after death, but my own bedroom in my small Manhattan apartment. The bedroom I'd moved out of 4 years ago. My phone was buzzing on the nightstand, an old model I'd replaced before my trip. I picked it up with trembling hands, half convinced I was hallucinating. The date on the screen made me drop it as if it had burned me. May 17th, 2019, exactly 5 years before my death. "No way," I whispered, scrambling to my laptop. The same date greeted me there. The news headlines were from 2019. My email inbox contained messages I'd answered years ago. I stumbled to the bathroom and stared at my reflection, younger, with circles under my eyes from the constant overtime at Kingston Financial. The job I'd quit 2 years before my fateful vacation. No blonde highlights, no confident posture, just the old Maya Reeves. Mousy, overlooked, pushover. "I'm back," I whispered to my reflection, watching my lips form the words. "I'm alive." It wasn't a dream. Somehow, I'd been given a second chance. The universe's cruel joke had transformed into the most precious gift imaginable: time. I called in sick that day, something the old Maya would never have done. Instead, I sat cross-legged on my bed with a notebook, mapping out everything I remembered about the next 5 years. Stock market fluctuations, company mergers, technological breakthroughs, crypto peaks and crashes. All the knowledge a financial analyst accumulates about the future, now mine to use. But as I wrote, my pen kept circling back to one name: Marcus Denning, the man who had taken my seat, the first domino in the sequence that led to my death. I hadn't asked for this rebirth, but now that I had it, I knew exactly what I would do with it. "I quit," I said 2 weeks later, dropping my resignation letter on my supervisor's desk. Dave Heller looked up from his computer, coffee mug frozen halfway to his mouth. His perpetually loosened tie and rumpled shirt gave him the look of someone always on the edge of a crisis. "Maya," he sputtered, setting down his world's best boss mug, a gift he'd bought himself. "We were just about to discuss your promotion to senior analyst. This is the worst possible timing." "For you, maybe." I smiled, feeling a confidence I'd never possessed before. My new investments, made with my knowledge of future market movements, had already quadrupled my savings. "I've decided to start my own investment firm." He laughed, the dismissive chuckle of a man who couldn't imagine his mousy employee striking out on her own. "With what capital? What clients?" "I've made some good investments recently." Very good investments, in fact. My knowledge of the future had already multiplied my modest savings tenfold. And I'd carefully structured everything to appear lucky rather than suspicious. And I'm taking 7 of your clients with me. His face reddened as he processed my words. That's against your contract. A contract that doesn't include a non-compete clause. I checked, thoroughly. I turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, and Dave, your management style is the reason your turnover rate is 3 times the industry average. You might want to work on that. The look of utter shock on his face carried me through the rest of the day on a cloud of satisfaction. My new company, Phoenix Capital, started small. Just me in a rented WeWork space, my laptop, and my invaluable knowledge of the future. I began with careful investments, nothing so dramatic as to draw attention. Small tech startups that I knew would be acquired. Property in areas that would boom. Strategic shorts on companies about to face public scandals. I was patient, methodical. This wasn't just about making money, it was about building power. The power I'd never had in my previous life. 6 months in, I made my first major acquisition, a struggling tech company called Neuratech, which held patents that would become crucial in the AI revolution. I purchased it for a fraction of what I knew it would be worth in 2 years. The board thought I was crazy when I redirected their research toward machine learning applications for cancer detection, an area that would explode in value 18 months later. Trust me, I told them during our first meeting, this pivot will save the company and change medicine forever. When Neuratech's breakthrough algorithm detected pancreatic cancer at stage 1 with 94% accuracy, something previously thought impossible, the company's value tripled overnight. The business press called it beginner's luck, when Neuratech's value increased further after a major pharmaceutical company licensed the technology. By the time they realized it wasn't luck, I'd already made my next 3 moves. The market's new wunderkind, the Wall Street Journal called me in a profile I refused to be interviewed for. The mysterious Maya Reeves seems to have an almost supernatural ability to predict market trends. If they only knew. Over the next 3 years, Phoenix Capital transformed into Reeves International, a holding company with interests in technology, real estate, and, most crucially, transportation. I worked 18-hour days, driven by the knowledge that I was racing against a clock. My death date loomed in my mind, a deadline in the most literal sense. Each morning, I crossed another day off my calendar, watching the gap between now and then narrow. I changed everything about myself, erasing every trace of the old Maya. My wardrobe evolved from department store basics to custom-tailored power suits. I dyed my mousy brown hair a confident platinum blonde. I took voice coaching to eliminate my tendency to end statements as questions. I hired a former MMA fighter as a personal trainer, transforming my physique from soft to strong. Again, Jake would say, as I collapsed on the gym mat, muscles screaming. Death wasn't the end for you. Pain won't be either. Jake was the only person who knew my truth. I'd told him in a moment of exhaustion, expecting him to think I was crazy. Instead, he'd nodded thoughtfully and said, "That explains a lot. Now get up and give me 5 more." The business media was fascinated by me, the mysterious woman who seemed to have an almost supernatural ability to predict market trends. I declined all interviews, avoided photographers, and built a reputation as a brilliant recluse. The speculation only increased my mystique and, by extension, my influence. The rare paparazzi shots they did manage to get showed a woman transformed. Determined eyes, confident stride, the bearing of someone who knew exactly where she was going and what she would do when she got there. All the while, I kept tabs on Marcus Denning, the CEO of Denning Enterprises, with holdings in hospitality, retail, and digital media. His public persona was carefully crafted: philanthropist, family man, business genius. His annual Christmas party for underprivileged children made the society pages every year. His marriage to former model Elise Canton produced photogenic twin boys and countless family goals posts. But my private investigators uncovered a different reality. Former employees spoke of verbal abuse and credit stealing. Business partners described strong-arm tactics and threatened lawsuits. Women at industry events reported uncomfortable encounters with a man who didn't understand the meaning of not interested. "He's got a pattern," my lead investigator said, dropping another file on my desk. creates a hostile environment, drives out talented employees, then hires young, ambitious replacements who don't know any better. Rinse and repeat. The seat stealing, it turned out, was just the tip of the iceberg, a small but telling manifestation of his belief that rules existed for other people. Most damning was what my investigators found about the Jenkins media acquisition, a deal that had made headlines for its ruthless efficiency. What never made the news was how Denning had obtained proprietary information by pressuring a Jenkins executive whose son was in trouble with loan sharks. The executive later committed suicide, a tragedy that Denning's PR team had managed to keep separate from any business coverage. I documented everything, building a file thicker than any business prospectus, and then I made my move. Sky Blue Airlines is not for sale, the chairman insisted across the conference table, his white knuckles belying his confident tone. Charles Whitman was old money aviation royalty, the kind of man who still called flight attendants stewardesses and believed women belonged in the cabin, not the boardroom. He'd barely disguised his disdain when I entered the room. And yet, I already control 48% of the shares, I replied calmly, sliding a folder across the polished surface. Your poison pill provision is ingenious, Charles, but it has one weakness. It doesn't account for holdings across multiple shell companies. The chairman flipped through the documents, his face draining of color as he realized the extent of my quiet acquisition. This can't be legal. I assure you it is. My legal team has been quite thorough. I leaned forward, enjoying the moment perhaps more than I should have. Sky Blue has been mismanaged for years. Your customer satisfaction ratings are abysmal, your fleet is aging, and your corporate culture is toxic. So this is a hostile takeover? His voice cracked slightly on the word hostile. It doesn't have to be hostile. I'm prepared to offer a 30% premium over current market value, far more than this airline is worth in its current state. I didn't tell him the real reason I wanted this particular airline. It was Marcus Denning's preferred carrier for both business and personal travel, the one where he'd pulled his seat-stealing stunt multiple times, the airline whose lax enforcement of seating policy had been the first step in my undoing. The board will never approve this, Charles blustered, but his eyes told a different story. He knew he was beaten. The board is meeting as we speak, reviewing the same documents you're holding. I checked my watch. I'd guess we have about 10 minutes before they call to accept my offer. Right on cue, Charles's phone rang. He answered, listened, his face growing increasingly resigned. They accepted, he said finally, setting down the phone. God help Sky Blue. God has nothing to do with it, I replied, standing to leave, and it won't be Sky Blue much longer. 3 weeks and many negotiations later, Sky Blue Airlines became the newest addition to Reeves International. I immediately renamed it Ascend Airways, replaced the senior management, and implemented the most rigorous customer service training program in the industry. Our new policy is simple, I told the assembled flight attendants during retraining. Every passenger deserves respect, regardless of their status level, and no passenger may change their assigned seat without approval from both the affected passenger and the chief flight attendant. A veteran attendant raised her hand. What if the passenger is a VIP or threatens to complain to corporate? Then you direct them to me, I said firmly. No exceptions. No passenger's comfort is more important than another's. I instituted financial incentives for crews who enforced these policies, especially with difficult high-status passengers. Slowly, Ascend developed a reputation as the airline where everyone was treated well, from first class to economy. All the while, I waited for Marcus Denning to book a flight. Mr. Denning has booked the New York to London route next Thursday, my assistant reported, placing the flight manifest on my desk. After nearly 5 years of waiting, the moment had finally arrived. I felt a calm settle over me, the serenity of a chess player who has foreseen every possible move. Cancel the commercial flight, I instructed. We'll use my personal jet instead. Inform Mr. Denning that he's been selected for our Executive Experience program, a complimentary upgrade to private air travel. He's booked in business class. Won't he be suspicious of such a significant upgrade? People like Marcus Denning don't question good fortune. They simply assume they deserve it. I smiled thinly. Make sure his seat assignment is 1A. Yes, Miss Reeves. My assistant paused at the door. Will you be on the flight as well? Oh, yes, I said, already envisioning the scene. I wouldn't miss it for the world. I personally selected the crew, professionals who understood the importance of this particular flight. Then I added myself to the manifest as both owner and auxiliary flight attendant. After 5 years of preparation, I wanted to see his face when he realized who now controlled his comfort. Which brings me back to this moment, watching Marcus Denning settle into the leather seat I've prepared for him, blissfully unaware of what's to come. Can I get you a drink before takeoff, Mr. Denning? I ask, playing the attentive host. Macallan 25 if you have it. He doesn't look up from his phone, still scrolling through emails. Of course we do. I stocked it specifically for you. I prepare his drink, remembering how he'd all but ignored me 5 years ago. Or 5 years from now, depending on how you look at it. We've made sure this flight has all your preferences on file. Excellent service, he murmurs, finally glancing up as I hand him the crystal tumbler. He does a double take, studying my face. You seem familiar. Have we met before? In a manner of speaking. I take the seat across from him as the plane begins to taxi. We've been on the same flight 3 times, actually. He frowns, trying to place me, his eyes traveling over my transformed appearance. You wouldn't remember. I was nobody then. I watch him sip the expensive scotch I'd procured just for this moment. Tell me, Mr. Denning, do you always take other people's assigned seats when you fly? The scotch pauses halfway to his lips. Excuse me. Window seats specifically. You seem to feel entitled to them, regardless of what your boarding pass says. His expression shifts from confusion to wariness. I'm not sure what you're implying, Miss Reeves. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating a fact. I cross my legs, enjoying the flicker of discomfort in his eyes. 3 times you took my assigned window seat, 3 different flights. The flight attendants always gave in because of your status level. He sets down his drink. That's what this is about? Some perceived slight on a commercial flight? His laugh is condescending. If I inconvenienced you, I apologize, but this seems like an extreme response. Oh, this isn't just about the seats, Mr. Denning. The seats are merely symbolic. I reach for the leather portfolio beside me. This is about a pattern of behavior that has consequences far beyond what you can see from your window seat. Before I can continue, the cabin door opens again, and a latecomer boards, a tall man with silver-streaked dark hair and intense eyes that immediately lock onto Marcus. Cameron Wright, I say with genuine pleasure, rising to greet him. Right on time. Marcus stiffens visibly at the name. These 2 men have history, a history that, in my previous life, I only read about after my rebirth research. Maya, Cameron says warmly, embracing me. Sorry to keep you waiting. Traffic from Midtown was brutal. You know each other? Marcus asks, his voice tight. Cameron is my creative director, I explain. He's been instrumental in rebranding Ascend Airways. What I don't say is that Cameron is also one of Marcus's victims, the brilliant advertising executive whose campaign concepts Marcus stole 5 years ago, destroying his career in the process. In this timeline, I'd found Cameron working as a bartender and offered him a chance at resurrection, almost as dramatic as my own. Small world, Marcus mutters, his earlier confidence evaporating. Smaller than you think, I reply as the engines roar to life and we begin our journey down the runway. I don't understand, Marcus says an hour into the flight, his 3rd scotch half empty before him. Why go to all this trouble? Buying an entire airline just to, what? Prove a point about airline seats? I told you the seats are symbolic. I've changed from my flight attendant role into my CEO attire, a sleek black suit that costs more than my old monthly salary. Would you like to see what this is really about? I don't wait for his answer. Instead, I open my laptop and turn it toward him, revealing a presentation titled The Denning Effect, a Study in Consequences. Over the past 5 years, I've been documenting the ripple effects of your business practices and personal behavior, I explain, clicking through slides that detail specific incidents. The Jenkins acquisition, for instance. Did you know that when Robert Jenkins killed himself, he left behind 3 children? The youngest has been in therapy ever since. Marcus's face hardens. Business is competitive. Not everyone can handle the pressure. Is that what you call blackmailing a man over his son's gambling debts? Pressure. I click to the next slide. Or what about Teresa Alvarez, whose clothing design company you bankrupted after she refused your advances at the Rothman Charity Gala? That's a gross mischaracterization. I have the text messages, Marcus. I cut him off, my voice steady. Every threat, every implied consequence. Cameron watches silently from his seat, his presence a living testament to Marcus's callousness. And there's Cameron, of course, I continue. The Platinum campaign was his creation, not yours. He has the original sketches and concept notes to prove it. That was a business disagreement, Marcus dismisses. Creative ownership is always complicated. It's not complicated when you fire someone for objecting to theft. Cameron speaks for the first time, his voice controlled but tense. Or when you blacklist them throughout the industry. Marcus's jaw tightens. What do you want? He finally asks, his voice lowered. Money? Is this blackmail? I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. I laugh. What I want is for you to understand the consequences of your actions. The plane shudders suddenly, catching a pocket of turbulence. The lights flicker once, twice, then steady. We're heading into some rough air, the captain announces over the intercom. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts. The turbulence intensifies, and genuine alarm crosses Marcus's face as the plane drops several feet without warning. A crystal glass slides off the table and shatters on the floor. Are we safe? He asks, white-knuckled, as the plane shakes violently. Statistically, yes, I reply, strangely calm despite the bouncing cabin. Commercial air travel is still the safest form of transportation. The irony isn't lost on me. In my first life, a fear born on an airplane led to my death underwater. Now I'm utterly composed while Marcus panics. I can't, I begin, but suddenly my throat closes and my vision tunnels. The turbulence has triggered a flashback, the feeling of water filling my lungs, the pressure in my chest, the absolute certainty of death. I'm having a panic attack here now, when I should be at my most powerful. Marcus notices immediately. Hey, he says, his voice changing. Look at me. Breathe with me. Surprisingly, he leaves his seat despite the turbulence warning and kneels beside me. In through the nose, out through the mouth. That's it. His hands steady me as the plane continues to buck and shake, and for a bizarre moment, the man I've spent 5 years plotting against is my anchor to reality. Why are you helping me? I gasp when I can speak again. Contrary to what your slideshow suggests, I'm not actually a monster, he says wryly. Just a deeply flawed human being. The turbulence subsides as quickly as it began, leaving an uncomfortable silence in its wake. Thank you, I say finally, straightening my suit. He returns to his seat, studying me with new interest. You've gone to extraordinary lengths to make a point, Miss Reeves. I'm beginning to think there's more to this story than you're telling me. I meet his gaze evenly. You have no idea. These are your options, I say 2 hours later, placing 2 documents on the table between us. We've moved to the conference area at the back of the plane. Cameron has excused himself to give us privacy, though I know he's watching from across the cabin. Option 1. You sign over controlling interest in Denning Media Group to a victims' compensation fund administered by an independent board. The fund will support individuals and small businesses harmed by your business practices, starting with the Jenkins family and Teresa Alvarez. Marcus's jaw tightens as he skims the document. And option 2? I release everything I have to the financial press, the SEC, and the district attorney. The Jenkins blackmail alone carries potential criminal charges. You'd destroy everything I've built. No, Marcus, you built your success by destroying others. I'm simply reversing the flow. He laughs bitterly. You make me sound like some cartoon villain. The business world is complex. Not every decision I've made has been perfect, but I've created thousands of jobs, contributed millions to charity. Tax write-offs and good PR don't balance the scales, I interrupt. But this can be a start. He's silent for a long moment, studying the documents before him. Why do you care so much? He asks finally. Even if I did take your seat a few times, which I'm not conceding, this level of retribution is... He shakes his head. It's personal for you. Why? How can I explain that in another timeline? His arrogance set off a chain of events that ended with my death. that I've been given a second chance at life and chosen to use it this way. Let's just say I've seen the ultimate consequences of entitlement like yours, I reply, and I decided to change the ending. The plane begins its descent into London, the gentle downward tilt punctuating my words. This is insane, Marcus mutters, more to himself than to me. You've spent years orchestrating this. What? Revenge? Justice? Is there a difference? Of course there is, he snaps. Revenge is selfish, justice is about balance. Then consider this a rebalancing, I say, tapping the first document. Your choice, Marcus, private restitution or public reckoning. After what seems like an eternity, Marcus picks up the pen I've provided and signs the first document. You win, Miss Reeves, he says quietly, pushing the papers back toward me. Congratulations on your revenge. But as I take the signed agreement, I feel strangely hollow. 5 years of planning, of building toward this moment, and the victory tastes like ashes. It's not about winning, I say, surprising myself. It's about changing the pattern. What happens now? Marcus asks as we prepare for landing. You take my company, destroy my reputation, and that's it? I've been asking myself the same question. The Maya who began this journey wanted nothing but revenge, to see Marcus Denning humbled as she had been humbled, to take from him as he had taken from her. But the woman I've become over these 5 years sees something the younger Maya couldn't, the emptiness of revenge for its own sake. I have a proposition for you, I say slowly, formulating the idea as I speak. Work for me. He blinks in surprise. Excuse me. I'm establishing a corporate responsibility division within Reeves International. Who better to lead it than someone intimately familiar with corporate irresponsibility? You can't be serious. Completely serious, you have skills, Marcus. Networking abilities, business acumen, persuasive talents. Use them to repair some of the damage you've done. Why would I agree to that? Because it's a chance at redemption, and because the alternative is watching everything you've built crumble while facing potential criminal charges. I shrug. Also, I'll pay you well. And you trust me to suddenly develop a conscience? Not at all. That's why Cameron will be your direct supervisor. I smile at his expression. Poetic, isn't it? The man whose career you destroyed will now be evaluating your performance reviews. The landing gear deploys with a mechanical groan and the ground rushes up to meet us. I'll think about it, Marcus says finally. Don't think too long. The offer expires when we disembark. I fasten my seatbelt for landing. Oh, and Marcus, if you accept, your first project will be implementing anti-bullying policies across all former Denning properties. For the first time in our acquaintance, Marcus Denning looks genuinely chastened. You know, he says after a moment, my father was exactly like me. Worse, actually. I spent my childhood watching him take whatever he wanted, from whoever had it. That explains your behavior, but it doesn't excuse it, I reply. Though something in his tone makes me listen more closely. No, it doesn't, he agrees, surprising me. I've spent my entire life becoming him, and I never stopped to ask if that was actually what I wanted. The plane touches down with a gentle bump, taxiing toward our private hangar. So what's your answer? I ask as we come to a stop. Redemption or ruin? Marcus looks out the window at the London skyline, then back at me. I'll take the job. 1 year later, I'm stretched out in a lounge chair on a pristine Maldivian beach, the same resort I never got to enjoy in my previous life. This time, there's no exhaustion from a terrible flight, no lost luggage, no cloud of anxiety hanging over me. Just the sun, the sand, and the satisfying knowledge that I've not only changed my own fate, but the fates of others as well. My phone buzzes with a text from Cameron. MD's proposal for the corporate ethics conference is actually good. Progress? I smile to myself. Marcus's rehabilitation has been slow and not without setbacks, but surprisingly genuine. The man who once bullied flight attendants into giving him other people's seats now leads workshops on recognizing privilege and entitlement in the workplace. At first, I'd assumed his acceptance of my offer was a strategic move. Better to work for me than lose everything. But over months of working together, I'd seen glimpses of real change. Of course, I still didn't fully trust him. Cameron maintained strict oversight of all his projects. But there was something undeniably satisfying about watching Marcus Denning use his considerable talents for good rather than self-interest. The foundation we established, Ascend Higher, has already provided support to over 100 individuals and small businesses impacted by corporate bullying and unethical practices. The Jenkins children are attending college on full scholarships. Teresa Alvarez's new design house is thriving with our investment. And me? The panic attacks still come occasionally, phantoms from a life I no longer live. But they're less frequent now, less intense. I've achieved everything I set out to do after my rebirth. Built wealth, established power, exacted a measure of justice. Yet the greatest victory wasn't owning the jet Marcus Denning boarded, or taking his company, or even seeing the shock on his face when he recognized me. It was reclaiming my own power, the power to stand up for myself and others, to set boundaries, to demand respect. I take a sip of my coconut water and smile at the memory of last week's board meeting. When a senior executive interrupted me, I simply said, I wasn't finished speaking, and continued without missing a beat. The old Maya would have apologized for taking up space. The new Maya knows her worth. My assistant approaches across the sand, tablet in hand. Sorry to disturb your vacation, Miss Reeves, but the Tokyo deal needs your signature. I scan the documents, making a few annotations before signing. Send this to legal for final review. Yes, ma'am. Also, Mr. Denning sent over the quarterly report for Ascend Higher. The numbers are impressive. Donations up 30%, administrative costs down by 12. Send him my congratulations, I say, genuinely pleased, and let him know I'd like a more detailed presentation on the mentorship program when I return. As my assistant heads back to our beachfront villa, I close my eyes and listen to the waves. So different from the churning water of my nightmares. I never expected to find peace and revenge transformed to redemption. But there's something powerful in watching someone like Marcus work to repair the damage they've done. More powerful, perhaps, than pure vengeance would have been. The sun warms my face and I realize I'm happy. Truly happy, possibly for the first time in either of my lives. 6 months later, I find myself on a commercial flight. By choice, not necessity. Sometimes I like to check on Ascend Airways service as a regular passenger, incognito in comfortable clothes with my hair tucked under a baseball cap. I've chosen Economy Plus for this trip, wanting to experience the full range of our customer service. My security team hates when I do this, but some things I need to see for myself. I make my way to seat 17F, a window seat in Economy Plus, and find a young executive type already sitting there, tapping importantly on his laptop. Excuse me, I say politely. I believe you're in my seat. He barely glances up. I switched with the gate agent. I prefer the window. A familiar script, a familiar dismissal. For a moment, I'm catapulted back to that first confrontation with Marcus, feeling small and powerless. But I'm not that person anymore. I specifically booked this seat, I persist, channeling the confidence I've spent years building. And Ascend Airways policy requires both passengers to agree to any seat changes. Now he looks up, irritated. Look, I'm in the middle of important work. Sir, the flight attendant intervenes smoothly. Our policy is very clear. If the passenger assigned to this seat wants it, you'll need to move to your assigned seat. The man sputters, threatens to complain, invokes his status level. The flight attendant remains politely firm. I've been a platinum member for 3 years, he protests. And we value your loyalty, the attendant replies, but we also value our seating policy. Your assigned seat is 17C. Finally, he gathers his belongings and moves, shooting me a resentful glare as he goes. Thank you for standing your ground, the flight attendant says quietly as I settle into my rightful seat. It makes it easier for us to enforce the rules when passengers know their rights. I recognize her, Sarah, one of the first flight attendants I'd retrained when taking over the airline. She doesn't recognize me in my casual disguise, which makes her enforcement of the policy all the more satisfying. The culture change is real, not just for show when the boss is watching. As the plane taxis toward the runway, a young woman takes the middle seat beside me. She's visibly nervous, white-knuckling the armrest before we've even taken off. First flight? I ask gently. She nods, embarrassed. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who's been there. I give her a reassuring smile. It gets easier. And for what it's worth, Statistically, this is the safest way to travel. I keep telling myself that, she says with a shaky laugh. But my brain won't listen. I'm Maya, I offer. If you get nervous during the flight, you can always grab my arm. I don't mind. Leah, she responds gratefully. Thank you. I feel silly being so scared. Never feel silly for your feelings, I tell her. They're valid, but don't let them stop you from seeing the world. As the plane lifts off, I watch Leah's face transform from terror to wonder as Manhattan drops away below us, the city where I once died and was reborn. It's beautiful, she whispers, leaning closer to my window. It is, I agree, feeling a strange sense of completion. 5 years ago, in another lifetime, I was the nervous passenger denied the window seat I'd booked. Now I'm not only in the right seat, but I'm helping someone else feel comfortable in the skies. Are you going to San Francisco for business or pleasure? Leah asks, visibly working to distract herself from her fear. A little of both, I reply. I have meetings, but I've added a few days to explore the coast. What about you? Job interview, she admits. I'm terrified, honestly. It's a big step up from my current position, and I'm not sure I'm qualified. I study her more carefully, the neat but inexpensive suit, the determined set of her jaw despite her fear, the hunger for opportunity in her eyes. I see something of my former self in her. What's the position? I ask. Junior marketing coordinator at Ascend Higher Foundation. I nearly choke on my water. The universe, it seems, has a sense of humor after all. I'm familiar with the organization, I say, recovering. It's excellent. What makes you think you're not qualified? She shrugs. I don't have the connections or the pedigree of the other candidates, probably. But I believe in what they're doing, giving people a fair chance, looking out for the underdogs. I thought it was worth the try, even if they don't pick me. I reach into my bag and pull out one of my cards. Not the CEO card, but one from my less conspicuous role as a foundation board member. Call this number when you land, I tell her. Tell them Maya said to give you a fair interview. No special treatment beyond that. You'll have to earn the job on your merits. But at least you'll get a fair shot. Her eyes widen as she reads the card. You're on the board? Oh my God. I've been babbling about being scared too. Someone who understands perfectly, I assure her, and who thinks fear is nothing to be ashamed of as long as you don't let it stop you. For the remainder of the flight, we talk about her ideas for the Foundation's outreach programs. She's sharp, passionate, and has a perspective that our current team lacks. Whether she knows it or not, she's already acing her interview. As we begin our descent into San Francisco, I close my eyes briefly, feeling the gentle downward tilt of the plane. So different from the terrifying plummet of my last moments in my first life. I close my eyes, feeling the solid reality of the seat beneath me, the plane carrying me forward through time and space to a future I've crafted with my own hands. My phone buzzes in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. You're not the only one who came back. Jay. My eyes snap open. Not the only one? For a moment, vertigo hits me harder than any turbulence. I stare at the message, mind racing through possibilities. Jay Jenkins? The executive who killed himself after Marcus's blackmail? Or someone else entirely? Are you okay? Leah asks, noticing my expression. We're almost on the ground, just a few more minutes. I take a deep breath, steadying myself. I'm fine, I say, slipping the phone back into my pocket. Just an unexpected message. Whoever Jay is, whatever this new mystery means, I'm ready. This time, I'm flying on my own terms.